Gets the snap off, now looking to the end zone for Maribel, has him for the score.
Jones fires to the corner, Devontae Smith, touchdown Alabama.
ETN bouncing it to the pylon, easy done for the touchdown.
Welcome to The Review with your hosts John Nelson, John Wilkerson, John Wood, and Phil Cantor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the OSG Sports College Football Podcast, going through the week that was, hitting the highlights, the lowlights, and everything in between. Before we get started today, big shout out and thanks to Steve Henderson, the man behind the voice, the guy who gives you the voiceover work here on The Review, on the X, and other college football programming here on the network. Thanks for doing the voiceover work for us. You can find Wilkie. What's his website?
Goodpipesvo.com.
Yep, look him up. Take a listen if you like what you hear. Steve is the man. Guys, an interesting week in college football. Might as well start with the big stuff. And we can talk about this knowing going in now that the Big 12 will be starting up this coming week and probably
the Mountain West.
That would be the Big
the Mountain
10.
West should shake up the polls a little bit. But in the meantime, the two of the teams considered of the three best in college football squared off Saturday night in Tuscaloosa in a game where Nick Saban was going to coach, then he wasn't going to coach, and then he might coach. And come Saturday midday, he was coaching. And the Alabama Crimson Tide smoked Georgia 45-24 after Georgia took a 24-21 lead in the half.
Mac Jones, pressure coming from behind, the lob to the end zone. Devontae Smith, touchdown. Are you kidding me?
Guys, is there that big of a difference between the Alabama team and the Georgia team? Both loaded with five-star prospects.
Wilkie.
Well, just thinking of one-game scenario. This is more of a one-game scenario. So Alabama had things going their way. Mac Jones got the chance on the national spotlight in a big game like this and shined with an outstanding performance, throwing for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I think one of the takeaways from this game, actually a couple of takeaways for me coming out of this game, is how much Clemson and Alabama has separated themselves now from the rest of the pack.
Oh my God! And
it's pretty. And there's a line between 1, 2, and then there's a definite dividing line there between 3 and 4. They are the most complete teams, the most NFL-ready talent out there as a collection. And, the other thing is, and it's a question I've posed throughout the season this year, is mainly with Clemson, is Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, who is a better running back quarterback combo in college football in the history of college football? And I'm going to give it a few more games, but Mac Jones and Najee Harris are itching their way up toward that level. And that has been the key to me. I mean, both are going to get at you and hurt you on defense. They're just that good and that well coached. But on offensively, they don't make mistakes. They have an outstanding running game, and they got 2 quarterbacks. Mac Jones throws a nice deep ball, and I was thoroughly impressed with Mac Jones. I'm not putting him up there with Trevor Lawrence level yet. Still got some work to do. That's why I prefaced it with they got a few more games to prove to me. But this Mac Jones and Najee Harris. But wow, that's all you can say.
And don't forget Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie III, who absolutely dominated what was everybody considered a pretty damn good Georgia defense. John, I'll ask you this question. All things being equal and seeing the amount of talent on the field during that game, to me, the thing that stands out is the difference between the two schools with quarterbacks. Mac Jones, two before Mac, now Mac Jones, Bryce Young coming up behind him, and then Georgia rolls out Stetson Bennett, which is not a knock against Stetson, but Stetson's a game manager. he's not a guy that's going to take over a game. And is that the real difference between these two teams?
I think that when Stet becomes more comfortable with the offense at Georgia, I think that he'll become less of that game manager and more of the passer that we saw at Pierce County High School. He ran air raid and spread in high school. He ran air raid and spread at Jones. So he knows how to do all the wide stuff. And I think that it just comes with the familiarity of being getting the ball from center in the SEC. I think that as things improve and he gets more familiar with things, I think that you're going to see the Stetson Bennett that we know and that we've seen coming into his time at the University of Georgia. And you know, the social media being what it is, the reactionary, ever logical place that Twitter is. After the game, two of the top searches on Twitter were Justin Fields and JT Daniels. I will say this right now. I think that the Stetson Bennett that you will see later in the year will be a far more comfortable Stetson Bennett than what we're seeing now. And I think that you'll see a more diverse offense with Georgia than you've seen so far.
I think what hurts Stetson Bennett is the fact that Georgia's run game just could not get significant yards. And you knew that going in, that Alabama's defense was not going to let the Georgia running game get those few extra yards or even some explosive plays. They're just built not to allow that.
Force a 5'11" quarterback to beat you, basically.
Exactly. Now, you know, the other thing I thought was going to happen is that how good that Georgia defense is. I didn't think Najee Harris was going to be able to find the lanes that he normally gets. He was going to have to get most of his yards out in the flat. And that wasn't the case. Najee Harris can go up against any defensive unit and create his own holes and create extra yards and even create explosive plays. To me, that was the difference in the game. Stetson Bennett, you're right. I hate to use the term game manager, but that's kind of what he is, especially when you've got guys in the backfield like Zamir White and Kendall Minton and James Cook, and you got receivers like Pickens and Burton and Kyrus Jackson. Alabama's defense just did a great job disguising coverages, confusing Stetson Bennett, forced him to throw 3 interceptions, and just wasn't comfortable in that second half. So hats off to that Alabama defense. And again, I just think Clemson and Alabama have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. And unless something changes, I just don't see how they're not going to meet in the national title game.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go one step further. Briefly, real quickly here. Are these two teams going to be the two teams we see again at the end of December playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship?
Yes.
I'll say yes.
So. Yeah, I think so.
I'll say yes, because nobody in the SEC really. I think those two have separated themselves in the conference.
Yeah.
I just don't see anybody else that can have that kind of sustained talent out there. Obviously someone's going to catch lightning in a bottle, maybe. I just don't see that happening. But yeah, they're going to play in Atlanta.
And I think that what this will do is it will reinforce the loser of the SEC championship game as the second SEC team in the 4 teams that will make the CFP, regardless of who it is.
And even if it's a 2-loss Georgia team,
yep,
they're going to be in that Final Four. You look at their schedule and you just don't see any losses in that schedule from now on. And Alabama can run the table, and there's the possibility of Georgia winning it at the SEC title game. So you have 2 1-loss SEC teams. I mean, I think you're right, John. It's pretty much, you can stamp it that there'll be 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff.
The other dominant team early in the season, Wilkie mentioned it earlier, the Clemson Tigers were in Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. And if you blinked, you probably missed the brief amount of time that Georgia Tech was tied with Clemson at 7-7.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech would get stuck there. Clemson did not. The final score in that game, 73-7.
Lawrence, back left corner of the end zone for Amari Rodgers, and they do it again.
Statement game for the Tigers?
Well, what statement were they making?
I mean, think about this. 17 different receivers caught balls for Clemson in this game. It was 52-7 at the half, and they still scored 21 more points.
Wait, 17 receivers? Did they bring out the student trainer and line them up out there?
I think that Dabo's two sons, Will and Drew, caught passes.
Yes.
You had Etienne caught some passes. Lynn J. Dixon caught one out of the backfield. So, I mean, this includes running backs who were in patterns that were part of the deal. But 17 different players caught passes in this game. But, yeah, for those, to your point, this game was tied at 7. This game was tied at 7.
Briefly.
And then Clemson said, forget this nonsense. We're out the door. And, you look at what we've seen from T-Law over the last handful of years, and 3, 6, 9, 10 different rushers for Clemson, 17 different receivers, 4 different quarterbacks got some time. And as a group, 671 yards of net offense, 500 of that through the air. And when T-Law dials up the local area code for the Atlanta area as his passing yardage, I mean, that was a great meme that Clemson put out there because part of Georgia Tech's respect the 404 or whatever. It's like, how many yards did Trevor Lawrence pass for? And then it goes down, it shows a picture of the sideline, the touch line where it says 404. And you're like, yeah.
4.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So you had that moment coming. So
What's the Cartersville, Georgia area code?
Could be the 678, could be the 706. Just
I think
depends on
706.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well,
that would have been something.
Well, they were close. They were 671 as an offense, but
they weren't far away.
No, they weren't far away from the 770 or the 678. But no, it was damned impressive what we saw from Clemson, and it just reinforces Clemson and Alabama as your 1 and your 2.
But I gotta say, I was very impressed with Jeff Collins in his halftime speech, saying that he still loved those guys even when they beat Florida State, and he still loves them now. I mean, they gave up half 100 in 2 quarters against the best team in college football. So that was a great way to treat a very sensitive time in that locker room by Jeff Collins. And it just proves that he's pushing all the right buttons there in Georgia Tech, and they're going to take these lumps. And let's just say these freshmen and sophomores at Georgia Tech, if they get better, and let's say Dabo Swinney takes the Houston Texans job.
No.
You don't think he
won't. No way.
I'm just throwing.
No way.
Hey, I'm throwing stuff on the wall here.
All
you
right.
don't think the Georgia Tech guys are going to remember the score?
Oh, yeah.
Much years when they play in Atlanta again?
Much like Cumberland remembered 222.
Exactly. Good one. Young kids out there, you need to Google Georgia Tech Cumberland. 222-0.
Yep. Don't ever piss off John Heisman.
The polar opposite of this game, the number 4 team in the country going into the weekend, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they won their game against Louisville, but the final score 12-7.
Good for you.
Is Notre Dame worthy of being a top 5 team?
Well, some of that performance to me was just really Louisville's defense and away a lot of the weapons for me and Book.
Yeah.
And I just think couple that and the fact that it was just a subpar performance by Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's defense played really well because that's a good offense at Louisville. So I think it's okay to have a defensive struggle like this now. In this era, especially in the COVID era, where defense was kind of a suggestion rather than a priority.
Yeah.
But look, as far as are they a top 4? I think they are. I think until they get beat, I think they are up there with. They're just they can't get past. They won't be able to get past that dividing line between 3 and 4 and 1 and 2.
No.
Even when they do the head-to-head in a few weeks with Clemson.
Oof, that one has the potential to be ugly. Let's run through here a couple of surprise games that not really a whole lot of people expected.
Yeah.
The number 5 team in the country, North Carolina, travels down to Tallahassee to square off with what we thought was a reeling Florida State program. And,
they're reeling, all right. That hasn't changed.
Well, they didn't reel that much because the Seminoles jumped out to a 31-0 lead or 31-7 lead in the first half, and then held on for dear life. They beat the previously now number 5 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. Final score 31-28. Nice performance for the Seminoles.
This doesn't help me getting a new coach. This does me no good.
Jordan Travis has been, he didn't exactly light things up through the air passing the ball, but he ran for a couple of touchdowns.
This
he's a
doesn't
prototypical
help me get
Mike
a new coach.
Hey, this is a prototypical Mike Norvell quarterback. He's a dual threat. He's a running type quarterback who can chuck it down the field every now and then. What I think, to me, what impressed me about Florida State is they got some explosive plays, which they haven't been getting. And I think Jordan Travis is pretty much comfortable, and now that starting quarterback and for Florida State. The other thing is for about 3 quarters, you got inspired play by that defense, which we have not seen from Florida State in a long time. And yeah, Sam Howell figured some things out, but Florida State, when they had to make the big stops, made the big stops. We haven't seen that from a Florida State defense in quite a while, at least since what do you call them? The hairpiece now, John? Left.
Twitter.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not sure what vernacular you went with that, but and I know, John, you talk about the incident back in June where he emailed or Twittered or whatever his players, which rubbed you the wrong way. Look, they're playing hard for him. They seem to be bought into what he's preaching or what he's coaching, and to me, I think that is kind of water under the bridge. They're playing hard for him. He's got the right guys plugged in that he wants for Florida State, and they had a successful outcome in Tallahassee against North Carolina. Back that up now.
I'm just going to mute off for the rest of the conversation on this game, because if you want to see me yelling, I'll yell with a mute button on. I'm just, give it another minute because of how North Carolina was driving. I think that if they'd gotten another first down, I think that they would have gotten the win, but that's just me. That's just me.
The other ranked team to go down this week, the Tennessee Volunteers, hosting the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky comes in and just absolutely smothers the Vols on defense. 34-7 win by Kentucky in a game that really wasn't that close. Kentucky might
even
be
by the score.
Kentucky might be maybe not an elite SEC program team right now, but with the defense that they've got, they could scare just about anybody.
Well, I think what helped Kentucky is
Jared Garantano.
Yeah, Jared Garantano helped a lot because he threw 2 interceptions. I think one was a pick 6, and the Kentucky defense scored almost as much as the Kentucky offense in this game. Kentucky, to me, is so fundamentally sound in the little things, and the blocking and the tackling, and they've got just enough on the skill position players to win a game or two. And that's a script that they've played in Lexington for as long as I can remember. But under the Mike Stoops era, I mean, that's pretty much their go-to, is fundamentally sound in the little things, and they do a great job at it, and they'll get a win like this every now and then. Tennessee, to me, they've got a lot of soul searching to do right now because, yeah, they came out like gangbusters, and we were before the Georgia game, we're talking about how Tennessee is becoming relevant in the SEC East, and well, when you have a 5th-year senior quarterback that still doesn't know the offense and still makes those kind of errors that he's making that you're just scratching your head going, what are you thinking?
I thought Guarantano's been playing since like 2003.
That's pretty close.
The Freddie Wigand of his era.
He is definitely Freddie Wigand at QB.
The other surprise game here, and we talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, Liberty University goes up to Syracuse and just absolutely blows out the Orangemen, 38-21.
The orange.
It's just not. They're not good.
What happened? Does Dino Babers have any talent in Syracuse, or are they just not good?
Well, I think
but who dominated the game?
Well, I just think Liberty had a little better talent out there in the field, obviously, but Syracuse has not really been what we expected that they were supposed to be under Dino Babers. The only time they were like that was when Eric Dungy was their quarterback.
Yep.
And he could do so many things, but he took so much punishment in the process. And Tommy DeVitra was not really that adept to run that Dino Babers offense, because Dino told me years ago he loves quarterbacks that are like 240, 245, 50 pounds that can take punishment. I feel bad for Rex Culpepper, who started against Liberty. What a great story he was, because he survived non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 2 years ago. And here he is getting his shot as a starting quarterback, and he just had no support at all, basically offensive support at all. And the Orange just don't look inspired out there. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of exit strategy for Dino Babers in the process going on right now, because they've invested a lot of money in Syracuse in that football program. They've redone the Carrier Dome to make it more football friendly. But on the flip side with Liberty, I mean, they are putting a lot of resources into their football program. They've made an investment into Hugh Freeze, and he is really rehabbing his career nicely in Lynchburg, to the point where he may be on the short list of a lot of ADs out there, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, welcome to Carousel, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, Malik Willis, 16-20 from Roswell High School in this game for 182. And he also added another 58 yards on the ground. But when you've got two rushers like Shedro Lewis and Peyton Pickett, who combined for 285, Shedro Lewis, 10 carries for 170 yards, including a 75-yard long on the day. So, 5-0 as a Division I independent. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting. They do have bowl arrangements with the four-letter through ESPN events with certain bowl games. So right now things continue the way that they are. It'd be interesting to see where Liberty goes bowling and gets to be a part of the dance in December.
And they still have Southern Miss. They got Southern Miss at home this week.
Yep.
Then they go to Virginia Tech. Mark that one on your calendar. They still have a road game at NC State, and then they close the season December 5th at Coastal Carolina, which is ranked now, ranked 25th in the country now. So they got a chance to make some headlines, especially if they can pull off a win over Virginia Tech. I mean, that would be huge.
Or Coastal.
Well, and
or
also,
NC State.
Yeah, well, and NC State's QB has a broken fibula. So Devin Leary is going to be out for at least a month, if not 6 weeks, or closer to 8. So that's big news for NC State coming into this week and for the remainder of their season.
Yep. Moving on to a game that Wilkie's probably going to want to talk about here, and the team that right now at least is the leader in the clubhouse for
Missouri State.
The two coaches of the year. Sam Pittman being head coach and defensive coordinator Barry Odom of the University of Arkansas, who won yet again, beating Ole Miss 33-21 and picking off not one, not two, but 6 Matt Corral, or what even
Corral. You got it.
Picking off 6 passes in the game.
Boyd gets the call right side, touchdown Arkansas.
Huge. Yeah, and what a pick six by Grant Morgan, who also had 20 tackles in that game and was playing with one arm.
I was going to say, isn't he
much.
bionic or something?
He should be bionic, right? Just I say this. I don't say this tongue in cheek. I really think Barry Odom should be Coach of the Year, not the Broyles Award winner. I heard somebody say they just should walk over and just hand over the Broyles Award to Barry Odom right now for what he's done with that Arkansas defense. It was amazing to watch an inspired group like that do what they did. It was awesome. And I'm trying to think of the kid who had the 3 interceptions. His name escapes me. But a walk-on who just got to start because Hudson Clark, walk-on from Dallas, who had 3 picks in the game, a hat trick, and this is a walk-on, redshirt walk-on who just started because the guy in front of him couldn't play, and of course Bumper Pool didn't play on Arkansas's defense. An inspired win.
Bumper Pool. That's one of the great names in college football.
So, I mean, as a Razorback fan myself, and everybody knows that, it's inspiring to see that you've broken 2 streaks. You've broken an SEC win streak and an SEC win streak at home, or losing streak at home. So now you get to go to College Station, Texas, and that's the first time they played in College Station, I think, since 2001.
And they get to go and hang out with the rug.
I'm sorry, 1991. I had the year wrong. And if that's the case, I'll have to look that up. I was at that game in 1991 in College Station when Bucky Richardson, and we had a nickname for Bucky Richardson, basically beat us in that game. But I think this is a huge test for Arkansas against Texas A&M, who's playing really inspired right now. And it's great to see an old Southwest Conference rivalry in College Station renewed.
Well, I mean, but think about Grant Morgan for a second. 19 tackles on the day.
19.
5 solos.
One arm.
Yeah, one arm, and he's got that arm from the space shuttle. He's got that big brace. He's got the Barry Bonds brace on his arm, playing with that all the way down. 19 tackles, 5 solos, 3 TFLs, and a pick.
Pick 6.
So Bumper Pool got himself some competition with Bionic Grant Morgan.
Let's get to another game here that I want to talk about, because this involved 2 teams that we talked about a little bit at length over the last couple of weeks as 2 surprise underdog style teams. And that's Coastal Carolina and Louisiana, who squared off this past Wednesday. Coastal with a big win, 30-27, and jumping themselves into the rankings obviously for the first time in their history.
Snap and hold are good. Biscardi puts a toe into it, and it's right through the upright.
Nothing like a last-second field goal, huh, Phil?
Yeah.
Well, and getting the win at Cajun Field.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the win against the team. Yeah, although Coastal has the win over Kansas and Iowa State. I mean, Louisiana has a huge dominating win in Ames over Iowa State, and Iowa State's in the running for the Big 12 title.
Yep.
So now you've defeated a team that's going for a conference championship. Phil, you always say Cincinnati is that team that could probably, if there's going to be a group of 5 team that jumps into the playoff, that's your pick, and that's a great pick. I look at Coastal Carolina as well, and I'm probably one of the few that are looking at the Chanticleers in that regard, because every challenge they've been asked to achieve, they've done it. And so if they keep winning, I see them moving on up into the top 10 and maybe at least getting a New Year's Six bowl.
I just want to see him play home games so we can see the teal turf yet again on television.
You want to talk about one of the best buys in all of college football? Joe Molia, their DFO, salary of $1 a year.
Good wages.
The former head coach, who is now their director of football operations, they've given him a longer title for the business card at Coastal, but former big kahuna at TD Waterhouse.
Yep.
And wanted to be a head coach and resurrect his coaching career after a long absence of being in the business world. Went to Coastal, brought that program to where it is, and it's continued now. But $1 a year for Joe Molia is their DFO.
So on December 5th, when the Chanticleers play Liberty, is that appointment television?
Oh, yes.
It could be.
Wow.
It'll be on the teal turf.
Yes. It's going to be a fun
never
one.
pass up a chance to see it if you haven't, folks.
Yep.
One last game I want to talk about here before we wrap things up on the first half of the review. A super nail-biting thriller in Memphis as the Tigers escaped UCF 50-49 in one of the craziest games in recent memory. UCF quarterback Dylan Gabriel threw for 601 yards and 5 touchdown passes. The game was decided by a bad field goal kick.
Daniel Obarski for the lead, and he missed it to the left. As Obarski seems to be inconsolable right now in defeat.
Well, and it was the craziest game that we had seen in a long time in the past 2 days, because we'll get into this in the second block. We'll talk about the other crazy games. But, yeah, the UCF players that were crowding their kicker need to lighten up.
Yeah, I agree.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, or what I'm talking about, what John's talking about is after the kick was missed, there was a shot on the sidelines during the game, during ESPN's coverage of the game, where you saw a couple of the players get in the kicker's grill and really, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Words were exchanged.
Yes,
and
colorful metaphors.
Yeah, damn near came to blows.
Yeah, classy.
That's the second loss for UCF, who drops to 2-2 on the season. Memphis goes to 2-1 and has now the advantage in their conference.
So what are you thinking when you know that kickers are mentally, their psyche is a little,
They're just a
I don't
little
want to say subset. Yeah, they're a little different, but I mean, you got to keep them in a positive frame of mind.
Well, and
do you think he's going to give that effort on that last second field goal and his teammates are going to hammer him like that?
Well, I think that probably what's going to happen is, I mean, you said this particular kicker didn't back down, and he was ready to drop and go. He had to be separated too, and so I think that the first time that clutch kick happens and UCF gets a field goal in a certain situation, don't be surprised that back on the sidelines you see some finger wagging and maybe a little woofing from the kicker. And I'm all for woofing from the kicker whenever you can see it.
Sounds like we can wrap on a kicker here in the first half of this show. Guys, we're going to go to break here in just a second. When we come back in the second half, we're going to talk Big 12, the return of the Big 12. We're going to talk about another slew of games postponed and a little bit of fun. Yeah, and the Big Ten, I do that.
It's the Big Ten.
Yes.
They have 14 teams. They went past 12 to go to 14, but it's still the Big Ten.
Even though they have 12.
14.
But they're, yes.
Yes. Toss the break, Phil.
Yes, please, toss the break.
All that and more when we come back to the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network of 12.
The online sports guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, yes, I remember now. Missed it by that much.
You have made it to the second half of the show. This is the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. And before we get too deep into it here, time to do the obligatory promos here. Make sure you find us on social media. Look up at OSG Sports on both Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You'll find us there. Really easy to do. We do have a phone app, and it's free. And John loves showing it off here on the video side of the show here on the YouTube channel. Just go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Download it now. It costs you absolutely nothing and gives you access to all of our programs, including this, the College Football X Show, rugby, wrestling, and so much more from our partners up in barburger.ca in Canada. Get it now. It's free. You can't beat the price. Guys, I know I said we were going to talk about the Big 10/14/12/10 to start off the second half of the show, but I forgot to hit on something that was just mind-boggling to me, and that's South Carolina beating Auburn for the first time since 1933.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That predates even me, who's ancient.
Not since the Great Depression.
Which might be what's going on in the plains right now.
We're talking 77 years since South Carolina has beaten Auburn.
Yeah.
And it's not like they haven't played each other much during that time period. They've played almost every year. A great win for South Carolina. Colin Hill, good game for the Gamecocks. Will Muschamp needed to win a game. And Auburn, somehow, some way, I suspect we're going to be talking about Gus Malzahn's job as we do every other year.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Auburn Tigers do.
Yeah.
Bo Nix, Patrick being his father.
Yes.
I'm just full of stuff today, aren't I?
Which did get your if you're over under at 1.5 for cutaways of Patrick Nix in the stands at the fairgrounds, and you took the over, you won.
Bo Nix showing very little signs of development between his freshman and sophomore year. Nix went 24 for 47, 272, and 3 interceptions. And this is a guy who is expected to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, if not the country, this year. Is this a lack of development by new offensive coordinator Chad Morris on Auburn's part? Is this something that's going to cost some people their jobs? John, you probably know better than the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, which John are you talking to, sir?
Brother Jeff Nelson.
All right. So here's my intel. From what I understand, the offense that Chad Morris likes to institute is very complicated. And right now, I think that you're seeing the complicated nature of that offense, and it's too much information being put into Bo Nix's hands at the moment. So you're also seeing the injury to Sean Shivers, but you're also seeing Tank Bigsby come to the fore as a true freshman, which is a pleasant surprise for Auburn. You've got a very young team on the offensive line. You have an experience there, once again, trying to replace Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown on the defense. You have all of these different things in play for Auburn right now. And where Bo Nix is concerned, I think you're literally watching him trying to process information in the pocket instead of just going ahead and being that natural athlete that we saw as a true freshman. And so,
and if you have to think about it, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And so I think that you're seeing him trying to process the Chad Morris offense in his head, and you're seeing the clock work and he's spending too much time thinking and not enough time doing. And so I think that if they simplify the offense, which they probably should do, and they should probably dial back the playbook a little bit, then I think you'll see some success for Auburn. Interesting statistic from the boss. Apparently, going back in time, presidential election years in this century have not been very successful years for Auburn football. So, she did the research and she was working her way backwards. So 21st century presidential election years are not very successful for Auburn University. So that's your factoid for the B block.
Several years ago, when Chad Morris was the offensive coordinator of Clemson, he gave me a tutorial of his offense. And in a split second, the quarterbacks out of the shotgun have to recognize 4 or 5 different scenarios that are going on while defensive ends are coming down the pike to take you down. So, yeah, there's a learning curve involved, and I can see that in Bo Nix. First of all, Phil, you brought up 1933. Well, last time the Gamecocks beat the Auburn Tigers, back when they wore leather helmets, no face mask, and the first year of the SEC, by the way.
Ding.
Did you also know that it was also the worst year of the Depression? That over 25% were unemployed at the time, and that the U.S. banking system was collapsing. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Well, and think about the SEC in 1933. You had Georgia Tech and you had the Sewanee Tigers.
And Tulane.
And Tulane as a part of the Southeastern Conference in 1933. So that's what you were looking at in the Southeastern Conference. And I'm trying to figure out, you had the Big Six. Here's your conferences in 1933. The Big Six, which eventually would turn into the Big 12. The middle 3, Rutgers, Lafayette, and Lehigh. The Rocky Mountain Conference, which is some big amalgam of like the Big Sky and Division II, and
the
Mountain
Western
West
Athletic Conference.
Were they high in Colorado?
I'm fairly certain they were. The Southern the Southern Conference, which was a predecessor to the ACC, which was where South Carolina was in 1933, also had VMI, Washington and Lee, Virginia Tech as a part of that one, as well as in addition to ACC.
The Southwestern Virginia contingent.
Yep, and then you had a bunch of independents in both the East and the West and minor conferences that went into lower divisions. But yeah, South Carolina was in the predecessor to the ACC back in 1933.
Lots of interesting notes
and
there.
A gallon of gas in 1933. A gallon of gas in 1933 was 10 cents.
What?
I'm trying to find a dime, but I don't have one here on the table. I could have. Get a gallon of gas. No, I couldn't find it in time.
Guys, moving on here to some other topics. We had a slew of postponed games again this week. I think it was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Charlotte and Florida International postponed. Vanderbilt at Missouri postponed. Southern Miss at UTEP postponed. Oklahoma State at Baylor postponed. Poor Baylor has played 2 games in 7 weeks.
So is Houston, I think.
Cincinnati at Tulsa postponed. And LSU at Florida postponed. And the reason I got to that game last is because this is on the heels of last weekend when Dan Mullen was begging the Gainesville crowd to come out en masse to the Swamp for the LSU game because the state of Florida was not going to restrict them. However, the university president said, no, we're not having a full house in the Swamp. Turned out the whole argument was irrelevant when it was discovered that I think the count's up to like 21.
19 and 2. Yeah, 19 players and 2 staff
at the university have tested positive for COVID, including the head coach himself, one Mr. Dan Mullen.
Check.
Is that karma, guys?
I would say it would qualify. Either that or irony, one of the two.
I hate to say it, but this is one of those things that's just going to have to be dealt with over the course of the year.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, it's your schedules are put either in pencil or dry erase board, and you just have to be flexible. And obviously, with conferences starting late, as we talked about earlier in this block, I mean, if you started at the beginning and you get 10. You had a good run. And so I know that some folks are looking at 7 and 8 and whatever. This is going to be, as we look back on this, this is going to be one of the wildest college football seasons we will have ever covered. Just know that your schedules of your favorite teams are going to be in pencil, and be very flexible about it when it comes to what your situation is for your viewing habits and who you're going to be playing on a weekend.
I was waiting for Wilkie there.
I think you
Go ahead.
He just agreed with me, I think.
Yeah, we talked about this in the tease, and we promoted this, so we need to talk about it.
Uh-oh.
That's what's coming up next week as we move on to week number 8, and it heralds the return of the Big 12. The Big 12. I did it again.
The Big 10, 12, 14. Yes, they're coming back. The Mountain West is coming back. Yes. Add more conferences and more games.
The Big 10, yes.
Yes.
The one team of the Big 10 that's in the top billing, gets top billing, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They have Nebraska coming to the Big House. The Big House. They have Nebraska coming to the Horseshoe at noon on Saturday.
Don't let the folks in that state north of Ohio let you hear them say that.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm just full of SHIT today. Ohio State's going to kind of kick off this. Well, no, actually, Illinois and Wisconsin will be your first Big Ten game of the season as they play on Friday night. On Saturday, Nebraska at Ohio State. And we now have the Big Ten in the equation. Do the Ohio State Buckeyes, if they can beat Nebraska, are they jumping up into that top 4 college football playoff conversation after 1 week?
What do you think?
Well, depends on the showing against Nebraska. It's a struggle like I kind of expect it to be, because remember there was some really bad football we witnessed, and now we're judging against teams that have kind of gotten some games in and kind of straightened some things out. But in week 1, it's crapshoot.
Yeah,
and you're going up against Nebraska, which has a huge chip on her simply because of some of the seasons they've had the last few years in Lincoln. And then they've been targeted as the bad guy in the Big Ten for
wanting to play.
Challenging. Yeah, for wanting to play. So obviously the league is going to beat them down a little bit and make them go to the Horseshoe for week 1 against the best team in the Big Ten. So and there's some talent there in Lincoln, and this is their shot. And I think they're going to go for it. Scott Frost is the kind of coach that will do that. And I think Ohio State has got superior talent. Justin Fields is, he's got to prove now. He's up there with Mac Jones and with Trevor Lawrence. And he's got to prove that he's up there and should be considered at least for a late Heisman run. A lot of pressure to me is on Ohio State in this game.
Yeah.
I give Nebraska a pretty good opportunity because of those factors. And, week 1s always scare me to death. If you're a gambler, if I was a gambler, no way I'd be gambling on a week 1 of the college football season.
Nope.
So I like Nebraska in this game. I don't know if they're going to win it outright, but I like the Cornhuskers.
I'll take the number. Yeah.
Anybody else that you think that could actually challenge Ohio State in the Big Ten? Are they that much?
I'm not even going to venture a guess. Obviously, Ohio State would be my team at the top of the ladder, but because this season is such a sprint, and everyone is basically this is like the sale at Target on Black Friday. The rush on the store is what we're now seeing.
Yeah.
In the Mountain West and in the Big 10, 12, 14. That's what we're looking at here. Everybody's wanting to bang on the door and try and get the hip toy or whatever the hip thing is that you want to get.
Bargain of the day.
Yeah, you want the bargain of the day by getting in line and being one of the first ones to beat the door down at Target at 6 a.m. This is what we're seeing right now. Do I want to be a part of that madness? No. That's why I do all of my ordering for Festivus from home. Ain't no way I'm getting involved in that stuff. I'm going to let it sort out for a while.
It was still a couple weeks away from the Pac-12 rolling their season out.
Yeah, if there's a team, right, and if there's a team I'm looking at, it's Penn State. So because I think is one of the better coaches in the Big Ten, and there's talent there. And I think if there's going to be someone that's going to challenge Ohio State, it's going to be the Nittany Lions, and we're going to find out week 2. But I agree with John with the sprint. I mean, but anybody but Rutgers and Maryland, if they catch lightning in a bottle, could be in the title game. I mean, that's how. Yeah. I mean, we're not playing against non-conference. They're not playing against non-conference. They're beating each other up. I think if a team like an Iowa or even Nebraska brought them up, catches lightning in the bottle and explodes out of the blocks, they may not be able to cut.
I think that instead of lightning in a bottle for Rutgers and Maryland, I think that they're standing under the tree during a lightning storm. I think that that's what those two are.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, not for those two. There's a chance of them getting hit by lightning, but not catching it in a bottle.
I'm struggling to see where wins come for Rutgers.
Oh, yeah. No, that goes without saying. There are a few decent games coming up this coming weekend. A few rivalry games even, if you want.
Yeah, Wilkie. There's the plug right there.
Well, we've got Michigan and Minnesota playing for the Little Brown Jug right off the bat.
Yeah.
Hawaii and Fresno State will be playing for the Golden Screwdriver, which
sounds painful.
Look that up on Wikipedia. It's an interesting story. It is the third Saturday in October, so Alabama and Tennessee mix it up. And this game looked like really great a few weeks ago. Now it just looks like another Alabama win.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunflower Series is renewed between Kansas and Kansas State, and North Carolina State meet in Chapel Hill. One of the nastier rivalries that really flies under the radar. So they'll mix it up in Chapel Hill on Saturday.
Yeah, some other games of note in the Big 12. Two of the current conference leaders. Iowa State travels to Stillwater and plays Oklahoma State.
Take the over.
What's that?
Take the
yes,
over.
take the over.
Take the over.
and we're still in Brocktober.
Yes.
Other games, I think Florida State and Louisville is intriguing for the simple fact that Florida State actually might have a chance here.
No.
Well, they're going in with a positive attitude, that's for sure. And maybe they've solidified the quarterback position, and that defense, maybe they could be opportunistic. They're going up against a really good Louisville offense. I got to take the Cardinals in that one.
I do too. You sound like they should just have Tony Robbins as their head coach, Phil.
And the game that I'm kind of thinking might end up being our game of the day on Saturday at 9:00 on ESPN2, the number 9 Cincinnati Bearcats versus number 16 SMU in Dallas, Texas.
I just don't want SMU to wear those weird uniforms that have like the weird 1980s D on the blue D on the white helmet, and just give me the old pony outfits. Don't sit there with the Dallas script and the D that looks like it was raked out of a bunker with a blue rake with paint.
You're talking about one of the better offenses in the country going up against one of the better defenses here. Something's going to have to give, Wilkie. This is
it all depends on SMU's offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And if Shane Buechele has to run for his life, you really got to like the Bearcats in that one.
Yeah.
I like Cincinnati because they have a really good ground game. They play basic football, and that's how Luke Fickell wants it to be done. And that helps when you're on the road too. It's not like there's going to be a capacity crowd at Gerald Ford Stadium because
there can't be.
They can't be, yeah. And I think that favors Cincinnati. They get any kind of pressure on Buechele, and I really like Cincinnati in this one.
I do too.
Hey, guys, got anything you want to hit on here before we wrap things up?
Required reading when you find it. The article at ESPN.com about Central Arkansas piecing together a football season. It's a great dive into how they put their season together.
Very nice. Like to hear that. I will check that one out myself because I'm kind of interested, having been through the Central Arkansas campus before out there in Conway, beautiful Conway, Arkansas.
Been there many times.
'Tis where the father-in-law lives. Anyway, enough of that. I will wrap things up here. For Jay Wilkerson 16 and for OSG Nelson, I am OSG Phil. We are the online sports guys, and you have been listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Thanks for listening to The Review. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. And enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.